Incense burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddhas smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see all of you. Some I haven't seen in a while, and some that are new. So great to see you. Venerable is still traveling. She's at Seattle Insight. Oh, Joe's here. Yay. She's finishing up a retreat, and she will be back tomorrow. And she'll be here with us for Dharma on Wednesday. So today, I had a special request to talk about our time away and on retreat. So I'm going to do my best to do that, to talk about the experience that we had while we were traveling. There were several chapters to the trip, and there were lots of lessons learned. So I'm hoping that I'm able to express some of what happened and how it's informing me, and hopefully can inform others and benefit others. So, and I do also want to just say that that I don't have this all figured out. This is a progressive path. This is just where I am. So take that and for what it is. It's just a snapshot in time. Things are constantly changing, but this is some of the insights that I've gained. And so I thought I would just start with just talking a little bit about entering into the retreat first, what that was like, and then a little bit about some of what came out of that, some of the learning that came out of that. So we started our trip with the experience in Colorado. Where we were offering song from Dharma Voci to a film festival, and that was a lot of fun. But it was very different than what we went to do in California. We went straight to California to the Master Zazi Zuma's temple and went almost immediately into solitary silent retreat. So Venerable Soma, Venerable Panawati, and myself all were able to do 7 days solitary retreats. And then Kedara and Ayasada were supporting us with taking care of preparing meals, bringing them to us, and doing all the cleaning. It was really wonderful and almost a little difficult to receive because it was such a treat. But so the schedule was set up, and then it's kind of your responsibility how you're going to follow that schedule. You know, it's self-directed once you have the schedule. And this retreat format was basically transmitted to Master Zazi directly from Buddha Master himself. So it felt very special and sacred to be able to participate in this, and in such a holy place, because that temple is considered a very holy place. So I was also able to practice in a part of the temple that was set aside and not used very much, that was going to be available for Venerable, but she chose not to sleep inside. So I got to utilize a very private yurt. It was called their Dharma Protector Chapel, where I was able to practice on my own. But I want to just tell you a little bit about the struggles that were part of this too, because this is a big part of it. For all of us along this path, there are times when it's difficult. And this was one. I went into the retreat feeling actually a lot of trepidation. I was feeling, I actually even got a little bit emotional. I was worried I wouldn't feel the right way, that I wouldn't be sincere enough. And I took a few notes. So I'm just going to glance down from time to time. Sincere enough, faithful enough, devoted enough, reverent enough. Or that I would fail at the retreat. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, which is something that I tend to do. I wanted to know, how do I do this purely? How do I do this really sincerely? Not just doing something, but really entering into it. And so I noticed, and at that same time, when we were preparing for the retreat, I was just noticing some things in myself that were troubling me. Like I was feeling a little bit of irritation at having to help someone set up their space when I was trying to set up my space. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you are so self-attached. And then I would feel bad about that. So it was just catalyzing, you know how that happens. Mm-hmm. So I was noticing that. And so I did many times, I would have tended to kind of just keep those things to myself, and then they don't get resolved. They can kind of grow. But I talked to Venerable Panawati about it, and she encouraged me to just set an intention for the retreat and to really let that be the driver. And that was good. That was just a nice little shift for me. And I did have intentions. And what I jotted down in my journal at the time were, I wanted to surrender to the holy beings. I wanted to surrender my own mind, my own thinking, just trust and faith and surrender. I wanted to enter into practice wholeheartedly. And I wanted to loosen the bonds of attachment to my own self and my own ego. So those were my intentions going into the retreat. The Dharma retreat schedule included mostly preliminary practices, which if you're familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, they're known as Nandro practices. There's repetitions up to 100,000, prostrations, Vajrasattva mantras, water bowl offerings, and mandala offerings. So those were a big part of the structure of the retreat. And then there was a water bowl meditation where you're holding a water bowl under light, and you don't let the light move. Now, let me tell you, that is not something that an ordinary human can easily do. And then there was our own specific Dharma practices. And there was another mantra that would be said many times throughout the day that was an achievement mantra, which helped to amplify the effects of everything that you were doing. It was a wonderful structure, and I actually followed that structure. I want to just let you know, there's this book, Mind Beyond Death, and I liked the way he talked about those preliminary practices. So I was just going to read just one little piece about that, just to let you know kind of what the benefit of some of those practices are. But he says, Nandro is the process of working to loosen our negative karmic seeds, our ingrained habitual tendencies, and to bring them to the surface. Once they are exposed, we can deal with them and transcend them. Whether we are practicing prostrations, Vajrasattva mantra, mandala offering, or guru yoga, we are creating the causes and conditions for our karmic seeds to ripen. That is what is happening. And then he talked about how we shouldn't blame those practices for discomfort that we're feeling, because these are practices that bring forth, that they ripen sometimes negative karmic seeds. So you might have discomfort, you might have internal or external negative things happen, but that is actually a good thing. You're purifying. These things are coming to fruition so that they can then be gone. And if you can be forbearing in the face of those, you're purifying yourself. So it's purification, merit building, and creating space in our minds. So I'll just briefly talk about how the course of those 7 days went, I noticed on day one, stray thoughts, fatigue, physical discomfort. I had a reflection about the truth in some of my observations about myself. You know, some of those critical thoughts, there is some truth in those, but the way that I talk to myself is not helpful. So how can you take some of that information and use it in a beneficial way? That was something that was coming up. I was feeling a lot of gratitude for the ability and the opportunity to be in such a beautiful place and be doing this most beneficial work. I was trying to find a balance between pushing myself too hard, and this is a regular one for me. I know we're all in different places, but for many of us, we're looking at pushing hard or being too lax. I tend to kind of swing pretty widely. So I was trying to find that balance. I was noticing thoughts of I need to, and I was trying to reframe them to I get to. I have the good fortune to. Just these little shifts can make such a difference. I wrote a quote down in my journal that day. As long as this is day one, as long as you rely on cultivation to enter the Dharma, there's nothing you cannot overcome. As long as you earnestly cultivate yourself, you will naturally develop and possess great compassion and wisdom. Buddha Master. Day two, I noticed again hindrances of sleepiness and lack of concentration in the morning. So I decided to actually reflect on impermanence. Buddha Master talks to us about how reflecting on impermanence can really fuel us. And when I talk about reflecting on impermanence, for me, what helps is to think about how if there's any difficulty that I'm having that I want to escape, to recognize that there isn't an escape. This will continue in life after life after life until I address or resolve whatever it is that's going on. That helps. So, and how can you address and resolve those things? The practice of the Dharma. The Buddha tells us exactly how to do that. And aren't we fortunate to have that recipe? So I really pondered impermanence. Buddha Master says, after you have a state of mind cognizant of impermanence, true faith will arise. It's another thing we all often ask questions about. How do you get true faith? When you truly have faith, you will know that you should make vows about what you will do. Having made vows, you will actually carry them out. And this is called practice. Starting to get a sense of, at moments, of just the purity of our beings, you know, that we are not all these things that cover us up. I was kind of getting a sense of that, just like that little child energy, the pure energy of innocence and openness. That was starting to come up a little bit on day two. By day four, I was noticing deeper feelings of gratitude and satisfaction for the retreat period, feeling greater levels of devotion and commitment. These are the things that I was hoping to have. And I was noticing that, you know, going into some of these practices, there is a possibility of just doing the thing, you know. But again, as I was saying earlier, what I was really hoping to do is to be very, very aligned in my body, speech, and mind. I wanted my mind to be sincere. I wanted to be present with what I was doing. And I was finding throughout that I was able to do that. I think it was having some results with that intention. A big part of it was having that intention. I was also contemplating on the rarity of this life and affinity with the Dharma and the conditions to practice it. Truly, truly rare. I mean, you read about some of this in some of these books where, or some of these teachers say that so few people are exposed to the Dharma. And then once they are, very, very many people have a hard time receiving it for whatever reason, the causes and conditions at the time. So the fact that exposed, receiving, and applying and learning is precious, so precious. And contemplating the emptiness of self, the temporariness of this body, this person that was known as Rachel and now known as Bhusita, is like really, really getting a sense of its finite nature. You know, when Soma did her retreat on aging, illness, and death, she had us do a little exercise with bubbles. And I thought that was really great because when we were blowing the bubbles, I was seeing these beautiful little luminescent, perfect little bubbles. And then they would just be like, poof, they would pop, they would be gone. And there was a little bit of me at that time that was like kind of grieving the loss of those perfect little bubbles. And I'm like, that is us. We are here in just this little form for a brief time. We're little beautiful bubbles, and we will pop and we'll go into the next form, whatever that is. So it will be gone like a dream, soon, never to return again, never to return again in this way. Just like all the people that have passed before us, all the animals in our lives, all the people in our lives, they exist really in our minds only at this point. And also understanding at the time, the time for practice and retreat, really getting a sense of how important that is. When we can make time for it, it's pretty critical, because then these kind of deepenings of understanding can occur. On day 5, I noticed things feeling more effortful in the afternoon and feelings of weariness and negative thoughts trying to creep in. But I countered that with maintaining right view, and that the thoughts and feelings were not me. They arise from emptiness. And that was another beautiful visual that was kind of occurring at that time. Just that thoughts just emerge out of nowhere. They're there, and then they just disappear back into emptiness. The only thing that makes them real is our attaching to them or grasping them or saying, this is me. So that was helpful. Day 6 was a wonderful start to the day with a more correct view. I was feeling more expansive, less narrow. Thinking about how on that day, how there's a sense of when you're with some of these practices, you're visualizing yourself as a Buddha. And with these vows, you're saying, I vow to become a Buddha, to save living beings. And now I noticed there was a part of me that bristled because it felt a little grandiose, like me, Rachel Bhusita, becoming a Buddha. And then I realized, really more deeply that it's not the self at all that's becoming the Buddha. It's our true self, which is not separate or apart from anything. So it's really, there's no ego involved at all. I was also recognizing, with that water bowl meditation, just in some of these practices, everything's in them. And just with the water bowl meditation, I was noticing how just that one little practice had all the paramitas in it. It had generosity because you're doing the practice to benefit all beings. It had precepts because it required discipline. It had patience because it definitely required patience. It had effort because it definitely required effort, and concentration for sure. And then wisdom, because insights can arise from that type of practice. So all of these practices have these beautiful benefits if we can see them. So that day was special because I was feeling this place of easefulness and joy. And I talked to Master Zazi Zuma that day, and went for a little walk around the pond. I was able to ask her some questions and get some clarification. And then I went to sit, I was looking at the kittens in the backyard, and they were playing, and there was this one Siamese cat that was kind of mean, and it had hurt another cat that I'd liked out there before, and that cat ended up passing away. So I was a little careful about that cat and how it was being with these kittens, so I was watching it. And then I saw this chair over and under the trees, and so I had never sat in that tree under that tree before, in that chair before. And I went and sat under that tree, and this may be new for some of you, but there are experiences that some people have where you can see nectar falling out of a tree. And Buddha Master says that Buddhas are able to come and bestow holy Amrita from the empty sky. Now, we had seen this, several of us had seen this, and Sukha was there, at the museum in California last year. And so I'd recognized it, and many of the other students celebrate and recognize these occurrences. When Dharma is being imparted, or devotion is present, or chanting is present, sometimes these holy events occur. And as I was sitting under that tree, I came to recognize that was happening. nectar was falling from the tree onto me. Oh, it makes me want to cry. Oh my gosh. It just felt so kind and compassionate for the Buddhas. It just felt like there was deep compassion and encouragement from the holy beings for all the work that all of us were doing at the temple, not just me. Sada had been meditating under that tree, and I wrote a little blog article for Master and noted how her devotion is so pure. So I think it was many things that resulted in that. So it was very moving, and it felt like something that could be received at our state of realization. Sorry. So after that happened, I went back to the yurt to meditate and prostrate and show my appreciation, and just felt a deep understanding, a sense of the suffering that is present in our realm, and just being alive in this realm. But I also felt nourished and committed to this path of unbinding, because it's there. Thinking about all the people I've known and know, feeling a deepening compassion and connection. My heart was feeling tender, a deepening understanding of the cycle of reincarnation and how we've all been each other's family members over countless beginningless lifetimes. We all try, and we all deserve to realize the truth and be free. We all try. Then, this goes like this. I went into the temple to practice because it got hot. And I was just recognizing, like, finally I'm noticing the energies of other people again, because I'd been out remote by myself. And I was feeling just some human feelings. And I was cautioning myself not to put too much weight on feelings or anything really, because everything is empty. Thoughts, feelings, events, people come and go, like they were never there at all. So no matter how remarkable a thing, like nectar falling from a tree, it came, it went, and it's gone. It's empty. We can't hold on to it, none of it, no matter if it's good or bad. Holding on to it just keeps us suffering. So I was noticing an internal stiffening or a guardedness or a protection when it came to being with people again. And really having to remind myself, this is where the practice is applied. Action and reactions are a response to conditioned hurts. They're not really usually about the person or the situation that's happening in front of us. There's something, an old seed that's being, that it's being aroused, that's then being displayed in that moment. So I really was working to let those things come and go. And I love the term being self-liberated. Thoughts and feelings were they can be self-liberated if we let them. Another aspect that came up is we had a lot of bugs in the temple in Colorado. So some of us were having to work with that, like the aversion to insects and stuff like that. And when we were in Colorado, Venerable could see sometimes realms and beings in other realms, and she saw a ghost that looked kind of unhappy and malevolent outside the house that we were in Colorado. And that was just fine. I went to the bathroom and was feeling a little creepy though. I was like, there's a malevolent ghost outside, and I closed the shower curtains so they couldn't see in the window. And then I said, well, wait, that's not really going to work. If that ghost wanted to be in here, it would be in here. But then I went to bed and was laying there, and it just occurred to me, I hadn't been thinking about it. And then I realized I hadn't been thinking about it. And then I realized if you don't think about it, it doesn't exist. That was a pretty cool insight. And I found later from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, this quote that I think speaks to that. Tigers, lions, elephants, bears, snakes, all enemies, all guardians of hells and demons become controlled by controlling the mind alone. By subduing the mind alone, they all become subdued. So this last day of the retreat, I made a vow to be a servant to my mothers, my parents, all other beings who have been my family member throughout beginningless time. Keep my heart open, keep Kuan Yin in my heart, to ask for her to help me in those moments that I can be compassionate and keep my mind subdued. I was also shifting from praying that I become something to trying to recognize that I already am that thing. And that it's our responsibility to change our own mind, the opportunity and gift and blessing to change our own mind. So that was the retreat. So then we went on to a Dharma assembly in the LA area, and it was just a wonderful event filled with many other students and disciples of Buddha Master. We were able to sing there, and we got lots of really great, a great response. And I was just struck by the kindness and compassion of everyone. We were treated so kindly, and it grows when kindness grows. It's just a beautiful thing to see. And at the same time, I noticed some irritation coming up when we were in our Airbnb about something somebody was doing. And so, so I sat with that. I was really trying to work with this. I'm like, what is this? Why am I feeling so irritated right now? And I realized that I don't have to have a personal reaction to anything that anyone else does or involve myself at all. I can just ask myself, does this lead to happiness, what they're doing? Does this lead to happiness for them? And if not, is there a skillful way that can be addressed? You know, it's amazing when your feelings aren't involved. I was recognizing, and this is not easy. I mean, I'm very much not skilled at this yet, but I'm just recognizing that if your feelings aren't involved, you can really come from a place of love and maybe say some hard things to people about maybe something they're doing that's difficult or that causes them, may have a negative result, and help them. Is there a skillful way to see it for their good and happiness? My feelings have no relevance at all. It's just cause and effect, what is beneficial or harmful. So another thing that really seemed very important at that time, and that I'm carrying with me now. So since I got home and where I am, and kind of just want to share some of the things that have been present with me since. When I got back, I went right to work. I have a job, and I've been working doing clinical evaluations as a mental health counselor, and I got right back into it. And then it was feeling so jarring, and I was feeling afflicted, and recognizing, you know, I have friends who are working and are trying to really practice and do everything they can to make progress in the Dharma path. And, you know, when you're really busy, that's a different set of conditions that you then have to consider. And being in a 7-day silent retreat was one thing, and now you're back in the world, and it's a different thing. So I was really thinking about that, how to be in the world, but not of it. How to not let the kleshas, the feelings, just overwhelm, because once they start, it covers you up. So some things that kind of came up were that, one, in some ways we have to prioritize time for practice, you know, just making that space, even if it's first thing in the morning before anybody gets up. Create some balance. You know, what I had to do with my job is say, I can't do more than 15 hours a week right now. It's just not going to work for this life that I'm trying to cultivate. This is my priority. And so boundaries, balance, and prioritization came up. Being present with the 3 karmas, this has been a continuous one. Being attentive and mindful to the 3 karmas of body, speech, and mind all the time. Are they in alignment? Is what I'm thinking or saying matching what I'm doing? So that requires guarding our minds and being awake and aware, well, you know, as much as possible. so easy to drift off. I'm finding that even this morning in my practice. Wow, it's just amazing how quickly that the mind can just spin off. The amazing good fortune of understanding and then being able to transform cause and effect. This is such a beautiful one, you guys. This is the Dharma. The Dharma tells us, shows us the truth of cause and effect. That's where oftentimes people get into trouble because they don't understand cause and effect. So they're pointing their fingers outward and feeling very hurt. They're feeling hurt by other people. They're feeling hurt by circumstances. Then they get angry, and anger produces more negative results. And it becomes this very, very deep cycle of suffering and affliction. So just knowing that through our own efforts, we can transform cause and effect. Our efforts and actions in this moment can lead to our own happiness and the happiness of other beings. It's so simple, yet so profound. And so the amazing good fortune of that we can do that. And understanding that the things that are happening to us now are the result of past actions. And we think about these things, but another thing I'm realizing is I'm the kind of person that would oftentimes just repeat principles to myself. Cause and effect, mindfulness, impermanence, but really being with them. That's where I'm seeing the importance of contemplative illumination that Buddha Master talks about. Deep contemplation, allowing for that illumination. It's also known as analytic meditation. But starting, and we may, if we have time, do that today. But starting with calming the mind and then really, really being present with one of these principles, exploring it deeply. So cause and effect was having a deeper resonance for me. And the importance of contemplating and understanding the two truths of relative truth and absolute truth. So relative truth being all that's conditioned, including cause and effect. That's a very important truth. We don't want to let go of that truth. Many times people talk only about the absolute truth and that all is one. It's non-dual, nothing matters. It's all good, emptiness. But you can't forget relative truth. So I was starting to understand more the importance of holding them simultaneously, all at the same time. When you're experiencing a difficult moment, thinking about cause and effect. How did this happen? How did this occur? But also at the very same time thinking, okay, this is going to arise, it's going to depart. It doesn't exist in the way that it feels like it exists in this moment. Buddha Master says, one relies on the absolute truth, but attains perfect understanding through the conventional truth. So again, deeply considering the Dharma instructions and their meaning and importance, not just lecturing myself or repeating things or convincing myself of things, but deeply knowing and training the mind. An example of that I thought of this morning is just that statement, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Like you can hear that and you're like, yeah, it's true. But do you really know that? Have you really looked at the thoughts that are making up the fear? Have you really examined what they are? Have you watched them come and go? Have you let them come and go? So that's necessary, this deep looking. How much am I putting into action in the moment? Another consideration. Am I being generous? Am I being virtuous? Am I planting the seeds of positive results? Continuously asking myself that. Have I been able to set aside my view? This is a big one. For very many years, I've been attached to my view, and I still am. And I love living in Sangha because I get to have a barometer of my Sangha members who can, experience at times a little irritation with my holding on to my view, or reflect it back to me in some way. Maybe not even be irritated, but reflect it back to me in some way. And how wonderful that is, because these are deeply ingrained ways of being. What am I saying is definitely true for me or for in general? And can I let that go? I was reading a discourse from Buddha Master again yesterday, in receiving effects from causes you plant. He says, I am telling all of you disciples that if what we do is in accord with the demands of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, if we relieve the sufferings of living beings, if we treat living beings with a kind heart, then we can receive the support of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in many different ways. All of our endeavors will succeed. You will have nothing to fear. Therefore, be concerned about the causes you plant, not the effects. As long as you plant the right causes, the effects will naturally mature. You must remember what I'm saying. If you plant causes that are not good, if you do bad things, then bad effects will result. So, excuse me. Out of thought, and then it escaped me. Oh, here it is. So, part of what was coming up with that is the importance of, yes, we can have the support of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but praying to in any way, you're praying for something to be received, and that's great. But are you doing what was feeling true was that if you have to plant your own causes, you have to do the work, but you can get support. But it's not just like a do it for me kind of thing. Help me out here, bestow these blessings. Like if you can do the work, support is available. If you can do the work sincerely and for the right reasons, with the intention to benefit others, not with selfish considerations necessarily, but to benefit others. We're all different. We all reflect and apply the teachings differently. Our conditions are different. Some people are having to put a lot of time into taking care of survival. Some people are having to spend a lot of time in busyness. So we all have to apply the teachings differently based on the conditions that we have. And that's where, there's so much beauty to the different Dharma gates. And there's no wrong door as long as the Dharma is correct. If a certain teaching speaks to you and helps you where you are, then that's wonderful Dharma. There's no wrong door. So we're just cultivating our conduct. Really, the common denominator is that we're cultivating our conduct and contemplating how to apply these teachings. That pretty much goes across the board, no matter where you are. And it's not always easy. There's many, many difficult times on this path, and that's where it's just so wonderful to have Sangha, to help each other through these difficult times, because there are times when we experience doubt or we experience fatigue or weariness or confusion or, any number of things, but we can hold each other in those moments. And with that, we can get through them and continue, because the most important thing is to stay on the path, recognizing that it's a gradual process too. It's not just something that just immediately occurs as much as we might want it to. These are things that we're shaving off, we're deconditioning, we're deconstructing, we're letting go. And I'm not trying to be a better Bhusita. I'm trying to let go of the false idea that I am a separate Bhusita, So when we let all that go, that's the goal. That's the goal. That's who we really are. So again, what benefit of thinking beyond this life? Persisting through difficulty, maintaining faith. I was really feeling the paramitas of virya, energy, diligence, and effort, and adhitthana, determination and resolution. And with that effort, I was really contemplating the effortless effort, or as in Taoism, they talk about Wu Wei. There's some beauty to that too, because how do you not push too hard and not back up and slack off too much? So contemplating that, effortless effort, Wu Wei. You're moving forward, but you're not like with a vice grip. You're not, you're not just with an inner sense of relaxation. Relaxing the mind, non-resistance. I love that idea of just non-resistance. You can sense in your body and in your mind where resistance comes up. It's all the time. Can we be aware of that? And breathe and relax our mind and relax our bodies over and over and over again. And coming back to the intentions that we set, that we really have to be grounded in to stay true. Why are we doing this? What is our intention? In order to stay true, you have to be really clear about what that is. What is your intention? What are you practicing for? What is this? I was looking at a talk by Khandra Rinpoche. She says, beyond expectation is effortlessness. Beyond expectation, that's another part of that kind of like, kind of solid, dense feeling kind of thing. Expectation, I'm going to get this. And it's just, she says there's effort. She says our spontaneous nature is always impeded by expectations. We can let our expectations go. We can have our spontaneous true nature can arise. We're making the space for that. And there is effort if you think of Dharma as something to do. Yeah, Joe.
Just occurred to me that if we're having the expectations, going back to what you said earlier, we're focused on the effects of what we're doing, not just planning good cause.
Oh, that's a wonderful point. Did you hear that?
Thank you for that. No,
Yeah.
thank you for generating that.
No, thank you.
Something I can use. Oh, okay. You mentioned you were just talking about expectations, and it occurred to me that you had said earlier that if we focus on planning good causes and not so much be focused on the effects of what we're doing, and that when you said expectations, I said, oh, that's a focus on the effects versus just planning causes.
I really love that connection that you just made. Yeah, that takes a lot of the suffering and pressure out when we're just, all we can control and all we can do is affect our own behavior. And then from there, yeah, letting it go. At one time I was thinking about faith, and I felt like I got something dropped in that was like, you don't have to have faith in anything except for cause and effect.
Done. We love that.
Yeah. And that's so wonderful and empowering because we're creating our own happiness and the happiness of others if we're good. And thinking about that and thinking about how things affect others. The last time I think I talked about the 4 immeasurable states of mind and wishing happiness for others and the causes of happiness, and how that's another aspect to consideration, and what I'm doing, affecting happiness helping someone else create the causes of happiness. Or am I encouraging them to do something that's going to cause them actual suffering? From a place of care, we can easily do that. We can be like, oh, it's okay, I understand, you're feeling bad, let me make you feel better. But that's not necessarily going to create happiness for them. So in that effortless effort, part of that is understanding the worth and the preciousness and of what we have here, these precious teachings, developing irreversible confidence, analyzing enough to understand the importance and the value. There is some analysis required, like we were talking about, really having a much greater sense of that, importance of that. And that practice is a joy. This is great. Finding the joy, being able to go into it lighthearted and not pressing, with appreciation and not that old sense of effort, or the doingness. more of the beingness. I think in the Tao Te Ching this is from, but it says, rushing into action, you fail. Trying to grasp things, you lose them. Forcing a project to completion, you ruin what was almost ripe. I know I've been talking really fast. I get a little bit,
No, it's perfect.
a little bit, thank you, okay. Are there any comments at this point? If we do have enough time to do an analytic meditation, spend a little bit of time on that. But I want to just offer the chance for anybody who wants to share any comments to do so.
I do. It's like what you were saying before.
I think Dara's going to give you a microphone. 1 second. Just make sure people online can hear you.
It's kind of like learning how to play an instrument, and it's like so tough learning. And then when you finally, you put all that work into it, and then when you don't have to put that work into it anymore, and you could just play it, and it just feels so good. And I think that's kind of like the outcome of everything,
I love that
I
analogy.
think so. I don't know.
No, I love that analogy. And so the mind state that you take going into it, you have to really want to learn that instrument.
Exactly.
And you have to see the value in learning the instrument. And then you can go into the cultivation or the practice or the training with joy. And then, yes, you can go through the effort to get to the effortless.
Right.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm struck by how windows open up in the Dharma. So I think when we were listening to Rob last week, we were in California, we were listening to Rob live. He had a quote, I think it was from a book, and it had to do with causes. And there was a profundity that struck me there, and he talked about that. And then Kedar and I were sitting together on the plane on the way home from California, and we talked about Rob's talk, and we talked about that causes thing, and there was more. And then I was reading that little book that we got, the purple one, and it had a quote in it that talked about the causes that lead Buddhas to kind of notice you as an aspirant, whatever. It was something like that. And now I've got this new insight that you've given me about just focus on the causes. What strikes me is, and what struck me even when I was talking to Kadara was, hey, wait a minute, there's something to this cause thing. It's emerging as a lesson. It's just not clear yet. Something to this cause thing. And it just came clear to me today, so thank you.
Mm. Well, you're going to be happy because I thought our analytical meditation or contemplative subject for today would be on cause and effect. So let's just get comfortable and relax the mind and body. Let's start with, you can just kind of say this inside along with me, but we're going to start with taking refuge in our bodhicitta aspiration. I shall take refuge in the Buddha, the correct Dharma, and the Sangha, all the way up until the time I attain enlightenment. I shall use all of the merit accumulated during the course of my cultivation to become a Buddha, so as to save all living beings. We're going to calm our mind by just taking a few moments to count our breaths, if that's helpful. Counting on either the in-breath or the out-breath. Just coming to a still point. Of inner quiet. And with a quiet mind, you'll do this on your own. But I want you to think about something that's happening in your life right now. And ask yourself, how is this happening? Not why, but how. What are some of the causes that could have led to that result? And how can you transform cause and effect going forward? Consider it from multiple angles. hope that was beneficial and that you can maybe take that and use it in your meditations and you're really contemplating a dharmic truth. Just sit with it and penetrate it deeply from a state of a calm mind. As Venerable says, all worldly dharma is Buddha dharma. And, you know, when we're talking about transforming cause and effect, we can joyfully make everything that we do in our lives a cultivation towards our true intention and our true goal. And all the dharma practices that we have, all the ones that we've been given, are methods to help us do that, to help us plant seeds of merit so that we can benefit others, that we can really purify ourselves, drop the false, emerge into the true, and help and save other living beings. We're very fortunate. Now, dedicate the merit. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. Thank you all for your kindness and attention. Love you. It's good to be back.
Thank you for simplifying our lives.